well, welcome to Between Two Ellens. I am Ellen Pogmiller with House District 88.
I'm Ellen Hefner with House District 87. Today, our guest is a colleague of ours, and this is your first year to be in the House. We're so happy to have you. Before you came into the House, you had a very great job, and you're going to tell us a little bit about it, but we wanted you on here today because today is Sexual Assault Awareness Day. And so I know that you have some experience with this in Oklahoma, and so we'd love to ask you some questions. But first, introduce yourself to us. Tell us your district too.
I'm Aletia Timmons, and my district is 97, and I ran in a special election last summer, and so it's almost June 16th will be the new election date, but it was June 10th. So I haven't been here quite a year. This is my first session, and I'm having a great time learning about the law and all the personalities, and it's really been fun.
I like how she said great time. That's really good. That's really good.
Well, you've been a great addition to the caucus.
Thank you.
Because of your legal background and your both as a judge and as an attorney. I know you're both, but that has been really helpful for the work that we do in this building.
That. Thank you.
Definitely, our caucus is much wiser and more curious too when you bring up points that it gives me more questions to ask as well. So thank you.
You know, one of the things I learned when I got here is that the Democratic caucus is small but powerful, smart, strategic, hardworking, well prepared. And so I was just really excited about that when I got here. So I want you all to know that I admire you as colleagues and as the people that we are shoulder to the wheels to help our state move forward in ways that help the people of this state. So I'm just real proud of that.
Awesome. Well, definitely, we love having you in the caucus. So tell us about how things that you have done with in your career that have to do with sexual assault. Especially in the workplace.
And maybe in a legal definition, when we say that, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
It is when a person makes someone feel uncomfortable based on their sex or their the way they touch them, the way they talk to them, and it is a subjective standard. So it is a reasonable woman's standard of what would be sexual harassment. And so it's interesting. We as judges are in silos a lot, so we're all in our own chamber. So I had maybe one or two sexual harassment cases come through. Most of those go to the federal court level. And so I had a couple of those at the federal court level, didn't get to try them because we ended up getting them settled. But we have policies in place at the courthouse. Most places that are in compliance with the law have a sexual harassment policy. And I would say it deals with men and women. And I don't know if you all remember, we had one in Lincoln County where we had a judge who got removed, or she was going to get removed and quit, who was taking pictures of people and lawyers, male lawyers in front of her that she thought were cute, and she would take pictures of them in the pink chair with and then post their pictures on the wall in her chambers. And so it was eye-opening that at that level, people don't know that those things are unwelcome. And the male lawyers were completely taken aback by it and didn't know how to handle it at all. And so that was one of the complaints at the Judicial Conduct Committee was that, why didn't you know? And so then we understood that that's an area that we needed to train on also across the state. And so that was part of our judicial education. Now, in my chambers, I had a court reporter who was female and then two male, my bailiff and my court clerk. So in my chambers, we didn't really have that issue, and I had not ever heard of that going on in other chambers. Years ago, maybe, I heard stories, but I don't want to talk about just stories because I don't like allegations like that without any real proof to it. So I know that we have been seeing lately in the papers the lady in France whose husband drugged her and had her abused either for money or his own amusement. We're seeing a spike in human trafficking, which is sometimes sex-based, but it's sometimes also labor-related. And then, I just read that another victim testified a couple of days ago in Weinstein, the Weinstein cases that are going through. So in the workplace, it appears to me that it's still prevalent, and it's a real problem.
We all attended a dinner on Saturday night, and I thought it was just excellent. But Anita Hill,
Yes.
there's a scholarship fund, and we went to the dinner, and it's still, I think, especially after talking to a lot of the younger women that work here, I don't think anything's really changed, and I don't think that we as women, younger women too, know what to do, and when it's happening to you, you don't realize it as well. Where are we with this? Like, what let's talk about maybe just where we work here, and about maybe if there is sexual harassment or something that one of us, females or male, feel that is untoward, something that they shouldn't be receiving. What do we do? What's the law?
There is, they have 1-800 numbers that you can call, that you can report it no matter where you're at. But at the legislative level, they have a employer's handbook, which they have the old one, I think. The new one's supposed to come out. But in that it says that here, if you feel uncomfortable or you feel like you're being harassed, and then here are the channels you go through. And I think that is first your immediate supervisor, if it's not your immediate supervisor. Then it is to the HR person at the legislative office that is in the employment chain. And then you can also, there is a Human Rights Commission that deals with sexual harassment. And I remember, I don't know for sure if it's the Oklahoma Human Rights Commission is still there, or I think it is.
It is. They did. Yeah, they reconstituted it.
Yes, because it was gone for a while. And so you can report them. You can also report to the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission. They look into claims of sexual harassment for enforcement and also education. So those are the places you can go for help. I would hope, and I think here they do sexual harassment training at least once a year for staff. And I would hope that what I like is when people understand that something's going to be done and that there are not going to be any ramifications to you because of that. Because that safe space is how we eradicate those kinds of things. So we have to foster that as employers of the people that work around us.
I think one of the interesting things she talked about, two things, were just when Anita Hill went and presented at the Senate, there were only 2 women in the Senate. And the challenges she faced in telling her story within that environment. But she also talked about like the legal law and why that created an opportunity for her to tell her story. And she knew that in the legal sense, she had a case to be made. And so, I didn't know what you had taken away from that conversation.
I was at OU, it was my last year when she came. So I didn't get to take a class with her because I'd already gotten through those classes that she taught. But I remember, I was in the DA's office, and I remember when all that broke. And I also knew Dean Swank was there, and he literally went with her to DC. He fought for her when he got back because there were calls for her to be removed. And I remember one time there was this reporter calling from CBS. I don't know if I've told this story, but a reporter was calling from CBS, and they were calling around to the women who knew her, and I was one of them, and asked them to get on TV to talk about that and tell our story one way or the other. Couldn't find anybody who would come forward.
Wow.
Because they were afraid it was going to result in economic and employment opportunities being foreclosed. I was in the DA's office then, and I said, I'll go. So I was on a national news interview with John Lewis from South Carolina. And we got into a real scrap about what evidence was necessary and why didn't anybody see it or anything like that. And so back and forth, we were like, and those are the kind of cases where people who are predators, that's what I call them, are people who do it when nobody else is around. And then they rely on the fact that they have more credibility and power than the person who's complaining. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
And so, we had a grand old time on that. And I remember talking to Anita Hill later, and she commented on, she saw it, and that was one of a friendly face from Oklahoma she really appreciated. So, yeah.
But that is part of it. Like, when it's happening to you, you're kind of taken aback. Like, what was just said,
Yeah.
And then after a while, it's, I remember when it happened to me, and my husband had just passed, and I had a job, and so I had kids to take care of, and it was, in my head, it was, I don't want to lose my job.
Right.
And what am I going to do, or what if they don't believe me, or, and I still remember talking to the supervisor, and he said, well, you know how you are. And I go, well, how am I? Like, I'm asking for this?
Mm-hmm.
And and he never told it to the boss, which he's supposed to do,
Yes.
which gets us to the law of
Right.
what's supposed to. So I tell the supervisor, and the supervisor is supposed
There's a duty to immediately report it under the law.
That's right.
If not, and that supervisor doesn't, and you sue later on, because the supervisor didn't do what they were supposed to do, it makes liability directly to the entity.
Wow.
Yes.
And I still see that guy.
Yeah.
He gets to keep his job, and nothing really had happened to him.
I remember when I had a friend that worked at the Corporation Commission, and there was a vendor that would come in and would harass the individuals there. And under sexual harassment law, if you have a vendor or somebody who comes in, even though you're not a supervisor, you have a duty to stop the harassment. You have to ban them from the facility, or only have them come to a certain area where nobody else is around. So you still have a duty to make sure that your people aren't being harassed, even if it's a vendor or somebody who's coming in selling stuff to you all or whatever. You still have a duty to stop the harassment.
You had talked a little bit about most of those cases go then through federal court versus state court, and why is that?
Well, federal court is a place that has traditionally had an exclusive jurisdiction over those things, but the Oklahoma Constitution also has prohibits discrimination based on sex, which includes sexual harassment, or harassment as some people call it. But I like to bring mine under Oklahoma law, because there was, at the time I was doing civil rights and employment law, I felt like a hostility toward those claims in federal court. Now, federal court used to be the place to take them, because the state courts were so limited in terms of the remedies you would get, and not because they weren't there, because what was on the bench looked different.
Oh, okay.
There weren't any women, and so, but as that changed, state court has those same provisions in the Constitution. So I bring my claims at state court, and I got a much better response, I will say, than in federal court sometimes. So you have to know when you're filing it which jurisdiction to pick that you think you're going to get a better viewpoint was. And I'll tell you why that diversity makes so much sense on the bench. I was presiding over a case that dealt with asbestosis, and this man had died. He was an electrician, and he was working in the naval yards and all that. He would take his overalls home and take them off of the back door, and his wife would wash them in the washing machine. And they made an argument that the woman was not in the zone of danger as contemplated by the statute. So when she got asbestosis, even though she was a stay-at-home mom, they were trying to cull her out of the group that deserved protection and also money for the injuries to her lungs. And I just kind of smiled to myself, because I thought that if I wasn't sitting there, that it would have went different.
That bad?
And I said, so the good wife, who washes his clothes for him, that he takes off because he knows they got dirt and asbestos on them, who then has asbestosis, who's been a stay-at-home mom, not out in industry, is not in what you all consider to be the zone of danger. And I was in a room full of men. And I said, well, you got the wrong one today. Yes, she is. Yeah. And you can take it up to the Supreme Court that had 3 women on it at the time.
Yes.
There you go.
Makes a difference.
Makes a difference.
I have like a different question just in general with your job as a judge. when we pass all this legislation at the state level, do you all go through training afterwards to like look at how much legal changes that we have created?
We do. We have someone at the administrative office of the courts that talks about new legislation, who will categorize which areas it affects so that we can look at it, and then will give us an explanation of it. So that is a great benefit to us. And sometimes we'll look at it and go, that's unconstitutional. So who's going to bring it up? and generally it'll come before us and we have to make a decision about the constitutionality of it. And Oklahoma County is the court that has most jurisdiction over the laws that come through the state level and the state commissions and boards. It has a venue. So we get a lot of those issues at the state level in Oklahoma County.
Well, you do know several bills that you've probably heard today that are unconstitutional. So
I try not to jump up and down on every single one of them, unless they're just so patently bad that I'm like, I can't just sit here. Because I don't want to go, I'm a judge, I know. You know what I mean? After a while, it might get a little old. So I try to keep my powder dry and save it for when I really need it.
We like it. I'll tell you, we like it. Going back to what you were just talking about with having women being on the bench. So that makes me think about the sexual harassment cases being harder to prove. Is that normally if there's a man on the bench? Or depending on?
I had some really good colleagues that had, they had daughters that were like, this is not appropriate. And then when in doubt, the law tells us, you send it to a jury and let them figure it out. You give them the jury instructions that are approved by the courts, the appellate court, Supreme Court, and then you let folks, if there's a question in your mind, then if there's a question, it goes to a jury.
Okay. But generally, are these, as we saw with, you spoke so clearly about there is a case. Well, we saw what happened, Are these cases genuinely hard to prove if it's sexual harassment?
It depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
It does. Some are clearer than others for us, and then some aren't.
Okay. So
if there's a question about the evidence, let a jury sift through it and get what they think is a proper verdict. And I've always trusted the juries. Okay. Even when they were wrong and I talked to them afterwards, I'm like, it makes sense. I can see why you did that.
Wow.
So there aren't very many that I saw when I was there. I was there 10 years, and I think I only had 2 come in front of me.
So that's probably more of the question is a lot of the women that I talked to up here never reported it.
They never report it. They don't bring lawsuits or anything like that.
Some are embarrassed.
Yes.
Again, you don't know how it does silence you for a little bit because you just can't believe it, I guess. I don't know, but or what it is or what that defines as it. So how do you think that we have a conversation, especially, if we're looking in the Capitol here, how do you think, is there maybe something more than just a sexual training? Do you think that there has to be maybe I don't know.
I always worry when you have an organization that is fully, mostly staffed by women. And so, and we are. We have legislative assistants, mostly women, and I worry about what they think of us as, are we going to hold the line? Are we going to protect them? And I just think we have to keep open conversations about that. One of the first things I did when I had my LA was, look, when I got assigned to her, was come in. If anybody makes you feel uncomfortable, I don't care if they're just coming in or they're around here, let me know and I will make sure I protect you. So that you know that this environment, as far as I'm concerned, and my colleagues next door are the same way on my floor, protects you first. Protects you first.
Thank you. There's I looked up in NCSL, the National Council of State Legislators. They have a sexual harassment toolkit box. So, those of you who want to find out a little bit more maybe could go to NCSL and check that out. I think because of that third party you brought up, there are states that include that in their ethics, and I think that might be something that Oklahoma looks at. I just was on a research last night just trying to figure out, because these strong, great, women not being able to at least define it for themselves about what that harassment is, even having those conversations are good. So we just wanted to put that out there, that for here in where we work, there is a that specifically looks at it with this power play sort of that we have here.
And it's usually a power dynamic.
That's right.
It is.
Well, of course we could talk to you for, like we kind of talked about sexual harassment a little bit, but we'll have to have you back on, because I'm more interested in, like, especially how you're looking at the law and what we're doing up here. It would be a nice, maybe we take her to a live show.
Yeah. Oh,
And
get you on the road with us, Timmons.
Would you take questions from the audience? That would be
Yes.
Well, we're going to do monthly live shows, especially. We may sine die early, you never know.
We are being told next week, possibly, I think is the newest, May 7th.
At least adjourning at the call of the chair.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But we'll definitely have to have you out for a live show.
Appreciate your thoughtful questions on.
We always end the podcast with a question. So if you have a question for us, and it can be, whatever.
Okay. What instrument do you play, if any, that no one knows you play?
Oh my goodness. Well, because I learned this when I took voice lessons. Voice is an instrument. And so
So you sing.
I was graciously given voice lessons for Christmas from my husband one time.
Wonderful.
So that is my new instrument that I'm working on.
So you do sing. We're gonna have to have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know but I'm better than I used to be. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm one of 5 kids, and my mom asked everyone to take piano lessons except me. And I said, why? And she goes, that's not for you. So I never played an instrument. Yeah.
Well, I played the drums.
Oh,
You did?
yeah, that's awesome.
Back in the days where I was the only female drummer.
Well, maybe you could teach me how to play the drums. So maybe in
Man.
my old life I could
was
at
first
least.
chair too, till I got beat out by a guy.
I love
They were
it.
livid.
You should be a thunder
Well,
drummer.
rock and roll,
They were
yeah.
livid, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody knows that. And I'm like, I played the drums. They were like,
I love that. Do you have a drum kit?
no, not anymore.
Uh-oh. See, your instrument, I need to pick one up.
Yeah, you
and
gotta
get the
figure out
drums, and
one.
So maybe we can.
In the interim.
Actually, it would be nice to do something fun instead of the. You say it's great and you love
I'm
it here,
having fun.
but it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
Is.
We burn the candle
Our
at both
part-time
ends.
jobs.
Our
Yeah.
part-time jobs.
Our part-time pay with a full-time and a half job.
Yeah.
Well, I love it.
Well, thank you for being here with us today, and
Thanks for having
we'll have a
me.
live show soon, especially if Judge Timmons can come back with us and do it. But thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for
We'll see you
joining
again.
us. Bye.